Hello and welcome to the short Excess Service webinar for employers. In this session, I'll be talking to you about changes which have been introduced to the Teachers' Pension Scheme for members who have service in the period impacted by the Transitional Protection changes. Transitional Protection affects members with service from the 1st of April 2015 to 31st of March 2022. This period is known as the remedy period. There are different rules if members have a full-time contract and an additional part-time contract, depending on which scheme arrangement they're in. For these purposes, the additional part-time contract is referred to as excess service. This occurs if a member has a full-time contract plus additional part-time contracts during the same period. It doesn't occur if they've multiple part-time contracts, even when they exceed 365 days. In final salary, excess service isn't pensionable in the Teachers' Pension Scheme, but may be pensionable in the local government pension scheme if their employer at the time was an accepted employer of that scheme. If they weren't, the service isn't pensionable in either scheme. In Career Average, excess service is pensionable in this scheme. Service from 1st of April 2022 isn't affected by Transitional Protection changes. However, the rollback of remediable service from Career Average to the final salary scheme on 1st of October 2023 will need to be addressed. If an active or deferred member has excess service, it'll be rolled back to the local government pension scheme. If they'd been eligible to join the LGPS, that is, their employer was an LGPS employer for the relevant period of employment. The excess service will then be subject to LGPS rules for the remedy period. Retired members' excess service will only be rolled back to the LGPS if they select the final salary scheme, not the Career Average scheme, when they receive their Remediable Service Statement, or RSS, and make their choice for the remedy period service. If an active or deferred member's excess service wasn't pensionable because their employer wasn't an accepted LGPS employer, the member will be asked to make the choice of either immediately taking or deferring their contributions as compensation. If a member chooses to immediately take their contributions as compensation with interest, their excess service won't count towards their pension benefits for the remedy period. The compensation payment they receive will have the relevant interest applied. If they choose to have their remedy period service calculated under the Career Average scheme at retirement, then the compensation payment will be included when calculating their Career Average benefits. If they choose to have their remedy period service calculated under the final salary scheme at retirement, they'll automatically be paid a compensation payment, including interest up to their retirement date. Retired members will only receive a compensation payment if they choose to have their remedy period service calculated under the final salary scheme. We'll be contacting you where we've identified members eligible for the Transitional Protection remedy with excess service that would be considered pensionable in the LGPS. This excludes independent schools, studio schools, function providers, and some higher education establishments who were established pre-1992. If we don't contact you, but you think you've employees who are affected, then please get in touch with us via www.teacherspensions.co.uk/contact us. We'll send you an inbox message via the employer portal to advise there's a file for you to review any affected employees who worked in your establishment during the remedy period. As a reminder, that's 1st of April 2015 to the 31st of March 2022. You'll need to review the service data we've provided to check the information we've provided on each line of service corresponds with your records for each employee. If there's any discrepancies, this will need to be updated and returned to us. However, it's important you don't remove any members from the file. If you believe there are additional employees who hold excess service and should be included, these member details should be added to the document. This report needs to be returned to us within 150 days of your receiving the initial message. We'll then take the next steps to validate the information we've received from you. If there are any discrepancies, we'll come back to you to resolve these before we can progress. Once the information is verified, you'll need to work with the appropriate local government pension fund to create service records for each member so the funds can be transferred. This will follow the standard LGPS enrolment process for your region and allow the relevant funds to request the contributions for any LGPS-linked service from teachers' pensions. For service that's not LGPS linked, this will allow us to take alternative action to provide the member with compensation. We're aiming to contact those of you with affected employees between January and July 2024. The timescale shows we're staggering the communications by regions, starting with the Southwest in January and finishing with the Northeast and Northwest in July. If you use a third-party payroll provider, we'll be contacting you directly as the individual lines of service linked to the member's record is linked to you as their employer. We'll contact the member to advise them of what happens in relation to their excess service. They'll be made aware that we're moving their relevant contributions to the LGPS, but they'll also receive some refund of contributions as compensation from the TPS. This is because there's a difference in contribution rates between the two schemes. We'll be asking for their bank details to provide them with any compensation due, and we'll inform them when the service has been moved to the LGPS and when their excess contribution compensation will be paid to them. If a member's excess service is moved to the LGPS as an active or deferred member, they'll have the option to transfer all their LGPS service into the teacher's pension scheme in accordance with the transfer rules. The transfer window will be 1 year from the member receiving their options as part of their remediable service statement. Transfers aren't available to those members who've taken the retirement benefits from the teacher's pension scheme before a transfer is complete. We have a host of resources on our website to help you understand the changes to excess service. This includes our decision tree, which will help you to understand whether a member would have accrued service in the LGPS and what happens to service a member has built up in the remedy period. If you've further questions on LGPS, then please contact us via www.teacherspensions.co.uk/contact us. Thank you for your time, and we hope you found this short presentation helpful.